Welcome to CivilNet. My guest today is Lusine Kharatyan. She's an ethnographer and a researcher at the Institute of Archeology and Ethnography in Armenia's National Academy of Sciences. So at the beginning of January, Minister of Culture, Science and Sport Arayik Harutyunyan stated that the old city under Yerevan's Republic Square could be restored and that the prospect of implementing the project is now being discussed with specialists. We are going to talk about this with Madam Kharatyan. Lusine Kharatyan, welcome.
Thank you.
So could you first tell us what's exactly underneath of the Republic Square? Is it an old city? What do we know about it?
Actually, as far as I know, these should be cellars of previous buildings that existed in Yerevan, but it has not been yet researched to be sure what we are exactly speaking about. There is some preliminary studies conducted by archaeologists, but no full-scale excavations have been done, and currently the minister is establishing a body that would involve different types of experts, from archaeologists to architects, city planners, even civil society representatives, to discuss what could be done, and only after that a decision would be made whether the continuous excavations will take place or not, and what it would be exactly about. This, and I am not an archaeologist, so I think that is my knowledge so far about.
Okay, so as you said, so Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said that this section will become a museum, sort of, and he said as a result, Republic Square will become a better sightseeing location, right? If the project is led properly. However, as you said, it seems a little bit blurry. So there was one question that came to my mind is, so the excavations happened 17 years ago. Why did they decide to just cover it? Why not try the expertise just straightforward? Why is it something that we decide now? Because, for example, in Europe you have this, right? When you have an archaeological site, people decide that we don't continue any construction until we know more about this site. Why didn't that happen back in time?
Excavations were not finalized back then. It was discovered that there is this underneath the Republic Square, but because Republic Square itself is a monument, as a complex, it was decided that to keep the Republic Square, which is an important monument of Yerevan, it would be better to close and not go farther into excavating and seeing what is in there, and keeping it, preserving it in the way it is under the city. I mean, this is what I know. What I would like to speak about is not why it was not done and why we are doing this now. What I would like to speak more about is whether we really need this for touristic purposes. What is this going to serve? What does it have to do with Yerevan urban space? And so on. So these are the questions I think that should be considered when thinking whether we want this site to be excavated and made a museum, into a museum or into something else. My understanding is that all these approaches will be discussed by the expert committee that is now being organized, and I hope that they will seriously consider whether to really whether it is necessary to really reopen this site and do more research and excavations, or maybe we want to understand how many such spots exist in Yerevan. What do we want to do with all of them, to do a proper mapping of understanding what are the layers and how much we want to dig into it. I would suggest, I mean, I think it's a good opportunity to open this Pandora's box about Yerevan's history, and to see what do we have there and how do we relate with that history now. So I would go with this line more than so as you said, so if we decide,
if the project goes on, then it means that we will have tourists coming, and so it would certainly become a mass tourism, and the consequences for this site might be disastrous, right? Because we saw that in the past with European treasures, the mass tourism degraded those sites. So how should the government manage or deal with the development of tourism in accordance with the respect of those sites, according to you?
I think, to me, it would be more important to start not from the point whether we want to use this site as a tourist development opportunity or anything else, but more generally to discuss what's the future of Yerevan as a city, what's the future of Yerevan's economy as a city, and what is the role of tourism in that. And maybe this is not the best type of tourism to develop in Yerevan. We should learn more who is coming to Armenia, for what purpose. Maybe it would not add a value, and maybe even our expectations of having thousands of tourists coming to the Republic Square to see hidden treasures of Yerevan is more wishful thinking than reality that we would have in the future. So for me, I wouldn't go towards this direction before really understanding what kind of tourism development we want for Armenia. Maybe that's not the best way to develop tourism in Armenia. There are so many other options. So, for example, we could consider agricultural tourism. We could consider different types of hiking. I don't know. It's just so many options, maybe crafts, maybe I know there are different projects studying these things and so on, but before making a major decision to do this, which would be a very expensive project, even if the decision would be to do it, it would be an expensive project. It would be better to really do all types of analysis and to understand which lines is better to walk, and and not face a disaster, and only after that to rethink whether it should have been done or not. That's and also, Yerevan as an urban space is not really very comfortable. We don't driving in this city is awful. We don't have good public transportation, and Republic Square is a major hub. So I think all these things would be discussed in this expert committee anyway, and I am not the one to tell them. I'm sure they will consider all these things, but I think it's a really what I would go for, to open this box and to first go deeper for us as Yerevan residents to understand our heritage, to really face our past, and to know what is our memory, how we relate with this space, and what is basically the memory policy that our government is having, rather than just for tourism development purposes to decide to open this site or any other site. That's
yeah, you just said about facing the past. So the thing is, as we said so far, is that we don't know that much about this site. An expertise should be still should be done. And you said facing the past. They say that it seems it's a 17th century site, historical site, and we know that back in time Yerevan used to be a very diverse, a city of diversity, because of various occupations, Persian occupation, Turkish occupation, right? And that besides Armenians, Azeris through time, and also Persians, Turks, used to live in Yerevan. So we have this Muslim heritage. And do you think that Armenians and the authorities are ready to face this part of the history of Yerevan's history, the Islamic and Muslim part of Yerevan's heritage, actually of Armenia's heritage? I say that because so far, if we relate to the tourism and the image that we want to reflect, the
mostly Christian tourism.
Yeah, exactly. So the Armenians and the authorities like to highlight the fact that Armenia is a Christian country. They are using the Christianity as a pillar of their identity. And now, if we decide to open this to the public, it means that we have to face also the fact that Yerevan had a strong Muslim influence too.
Actually, I am not sure whether after excavations in this site we would face an Islamic monument or no. I mean, to my knowledge, these are mostly, especially in the area they speak about, these are cellars of the buildings that existed in that area. But it's not what is important. You are right about that, about the fact that Yerevan was a diverse place where many Muslims lived, Muslims of different groups, different linguistic groups, different ethnic groups, plus not only Armenian Christians but Russian Christians lived in different periods, and so on. And there is no good time of being ready for speaking about this. Therefore, I believe that it's a really good opportunity for our government to start a conversation about this, and for us as a society to really face our past. Because if you look, Yerevan as a city basically is a very young place. We speak about thousands of years, but as a city it evolved mostly in 20th century. And each government or each ruling elite, because of its ideology, decided to just get rid of certain part of heritage that existed in Yerevan. For example, Soviet authorities, because of their nature and their ideology, decided that we do not need churches and mosques and all kind of religious things, and then they decided that all this old housing was slums, so they get rid of these parts of heritage, right? And they built Soviet ideology into the city landscape of Yerevan. Then the newly independent Armenia decided that it has its own understanding of the city space, and businesses started to dictate how and what should develop in Yerevan. The Northern Avenue is one of the examples of such developments. There are many other examples. So, and these layers come one on the other one, and they keep evolving. And people who live in this space basically lose their memory, because every authority decides that to get rid of certain parts of that memory. So I think it's a really good time. If we speak about revolution or cultural revolution, then it's a good time to really reconsider what our memory builds on, and to really try to understand what are the different parts of that memory, parts we ignore, parts we make mainstream, and parts that we even don't know of, we are not aware of. And for this purpose, what I would do, the best thing is just to start from making calls for different types of research to learn about Yerevan, what do we have in Yerevan, and based on that to develop different products that would make people of Yerevan aware of their own history. And after that, we will see what would be more touristic. Like if a city should tell about itself, there is a language that comes from the space you live. And if we lose our contact with that language because every other power tries to destroy something and to build other things, then we basically lose our identity and we lose any contact with our memory and with the space we live in. So it's a good time to really open this Pandora's box and try to understand what is in there. And there is nothing we should be scared of, because it's an honest conversation with our own past.
Thank you very much, Lusine Kharatyan, for this talk. Thank you for watching, and continue to follow CivilNet.